Autotrader in this concept can almost be seen as like a drug dealer, and what they offer is a drug that dealers want to have. And the question is, should dealers be reducing their level of drug taking?
It is. I mean, for the scale of my business and how long I've been in, the reliance on Autotrader at this stage of the business is key. Yeah, it is that drug situation where not only do they deliver high majority of our leads, that it's very easy to...
And welcome to Dealer Tech Talk, where we explore how technology is transforming and car and motorhome dealerships in the UK. I'm Simon Verona. This podcast is sponsored by DMS Navigator, the dealer management system to help you be more efficient, more profitable, and deliver better customer service. And also by Miles Companion, increasing customer retention, keeping buyers connected and improving lifetime customer income and profit. Today's episode is all about Autotrader. Autotrader have recently introduced their Deal Builder profit to Deal Builder to all dealers, which has generally received a negative perception for a lot of dealers. Today, I'm joined by an expert panel of dealers and dealer marketing gurus to review whether dealers' perception of Deal Builder and Autotrader generally is justified, and to explore whether moving away from Autotrader is something they should be actively exploring. And more to the point, how do you actually do it? So first of all, let me introduce the panel. So firstly, our dealers. Firstly, we've got Jim Reid. Jim Reid owns Jim Reid Vehicle Sales and is a dealer who hasn't actually used Autotrader, if I'm correct, for about a decade now. Secondly, we have Josh Apps. Josh is the owner of V12 Automobile and dealer who currently does use Autotrader. And then we've got Fraser Brown. Fraser actually fits in both of my categories of experts and dealers. He's an expert in dealer performance at his business Motorvise, but is also a dealer himself running out of Browns of Richmond. That's the dealers. And now for our experts. Firstly, we have Gary Monaghan, who's CEO of Digital Remarketing Solutions, and he's an expert in remarketing and in dealer-facing technology. And we have Ian Godbold. Ian uses his long-term history with the top 10 dealer group as a marketing and digital transformation consultant at IGC Digital. And then finally, we have Neil Smith. Neil's CEO of Motivate and uses his marketing expertise gained with Imperial Cars and briefly with Kazoo to help dealers with their digital marketing and operational efficiencies. I'll take a long deep breath after that. Welcome to everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, first of all, let's have a talk about Deal Builder. And I think probably I'll ask this of Neil and Ian first. Let's start with Neil. What actually is Deal Builder? We talk about it a lot, but what is it?
Yeah, so just to put some context, while I was working with one of the top 10 independent used car retailers about 18 months ago, we trialled Deal Builder for a 3-month period, admittedly very early in its inception at that point. And for me, the product was about taking that customer, taking them down a road of commitment, maybe one stage further up the funnel than you would traditionally see a customer commit to something. The problem we saw at the time with that process, and I understand it has been developed since then, was that what that did was take the customer, or gave the opportunity to the customer to reserve the vehicle on Autotrader with no pre-communication with the dealer. So we were finding cars that were being reserved without our, not instruction or knowledge, but clearly we knew when that reservation came through. But we were then having to log into the platform, deal with that reservation through the platform. In those days, we would have customers coming into the showroom to buy a vehicle that may have been reserved on Autotrader that we weren't at that point in time initially aware of. And that was causing us difficult conversations within the showroom. Also, putting that product in place on the VDP on Autotrader deprioritised our finance inquiry form on there, deprioritised the ability to link through to the website. And our view at the time, after 3 months trialling that product, well, it wasn't a view, it was fact, we hadn't sold any more cars. So it wasn't generating more sales. It wasn't taking people out of market at any different point to when they would be clicking through to our website and going through a deal build process on the website. So there was little or no advantage there. What it did do was cut our finance inquiries by half at that point through Autotrader. and it cut our visits to the website by 50%. And clearly, when you're at the level we were and where I was in Imperial, we did a lot of work on our website to show the customer everything that was good about our business. We were losing that opportunity. And whilst the idea is sound in terms of being able to try and capture that consumer at a higher level in the funnel, at that point, it wasn't well thought through. You know, the idea that someone can build a deal on Autotrader is great. Having said that, you know, when it's involving a part exchange value that Autotrader are generating, a finance quote that's being generated on a 48-month term based on, okay, two our lenders, but one third-party lender. Actually, when the customer's coming in or we're talking to the customer, the deal can look significantly different at that point. So I think for us, it was way too early when I was at the top 10 independent. And I say, moving forward now and maybe learning some more about it in the last few days, there may be changes that obviate some of that. But look, good idea. Was it at the right place in the journey? I don't know. You know, if the car's right, the price is right, the specs right, the images are right, customers are going to come to you anyway. So that was our concern at the time.
Okay, Ian, have you got anything to add to that?
Yeah, just supporting everything Neil said. I think every dealer we work with, where we've gone in there and deal builders in, we've taken it out just simply because the volume of leads drop, so therefore the cost per lead has gone up through that channel. Autotrader don't really refer to leads; they stopped talking about leads 12 months ago. But actually, if you look at it, the cost per lead went north. And I suppose the question you've got to ask is, why are none of the top franchise dealers got it on their site? The reason why is they want the traffic, they want the deep link, because they know they can get the traffic from Autotrader into their own website. They've all got second click attribution, so they can see what the consumer's doing on their own website. They know when a telephone call's been made from their own site, what source it's come from. They know if an email's been generated, and they don't want that. They want the click to come to their own website. They've all got great reservation opportunities themselves, and they'd rather have that because they've got the finance opportunity and they've got the customer. A lot of the time with Deal Builder, the consumer starts their journey, gets halfway, falls out, yet the dealers can't get hold of that data to be going to re-solicit to them. Autotrader can, dealers can't. So very much a case, every dealer we've worked with, we've literally come off of it.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Gary, why do you think that Autotrader have introduced Deal Builder at this time? What are they looking to achieve from their perspective?
I think for me, you know, I'm quite neutral because I'm not a dealer. I'm purely looking at a user experience and tech perspective. And I think what's clear to me is that essentially they're building their own sales funnel within the Autotrader ecosystem, and it's their platform. So they control the rights to do that. Whether that is fit for purpose for the dealers, because ultimately in the two conversations I've listened to there, the one thing that jumps out for me is control of the deal and the flexibility that dealers have at the minute to be able to manage that lead and deal with that customer on their terms. But if they go into this funnel, then they lose that control. For me, it would be better if that was a decision for the dealer to make as whether they can opt in or opt out, and give the dealers control of how they want to interact with Autotrader.
Fascinating. It's good, Lala. Josh, you currently obviously have all your cars on or a good proportion of your cars on Autotrader. Yep. When you first obviously saw Deal Builder and obviously saw that it was becoming a non-optional item and it was going to be on for all dealers, what was your first reaction when you heard about that?
I think the main thing for me was looking into it and not jumping to conclusions, which I think a lot of the kind of internet has done. Was it should be an optional thing. I think it's trying to fit a circle in a square. I just can't. For me, I can't understand why it wasn't a case that dealers have that option, because it's down to them how they want to run their dealership. They know how they get to a final stage of creating a deal and what works for them, and it might be completely different for a dealership with a forecourt selling £2,000 cars or £250,000 car. It's not the same process, same sales process. So for me, I think it was a big ball drop moment for them to kind of say, this is what's happening. You don't really have a choice. So basically buckle up and get ready for the ride, which, yeah, craziness for me, but yeah.
Okay, that's Jim. You obviously are haven't got too affected by Deal Builder because, of course, you're not an auto trader. But thinking about that, 10 years on from leaving Auto Trader, is this just another thing that reinforces your decision that you did leave and validates that decision?
Yes, for any of the people who don't know me at all, Simon, I'm the smug one in the corner because I'm the one that doesn't pay the Auto Trader bill. Yes and no. Listen, I understand why obviously they've done Deal Builder. You know what I mean? I can see why they've actually done it. There are, as Josh has said, there are advantages to it. There's definitely advantages to it, but there is also a lot of disadvantages to it as well. I think losing control of the customer journey is one of the major things for a car dealership, because Josh and I both sell cars. I don't know Josh until today, but we both sell cars. My journey will be slightly different from Josh's journey, and I'm old enough to remember. Josh won't be. I'm old enough to remember when all we did was to advertise cars. We advertised them in the newspaper, and we all know whose phone number you actually put in the newspaper advert. You put in your own phone number because you want to control, obviously, that customer journey. You didn't put the newspaper's phone number in the newspaper along with your advert. And that is basically what Autotrader are doing. They're trying to control that first bit. And one of the major issues is, as soon as they're farming data, the customer's data, what are they going to do with that data? Do they go to the one that's paying the highest prices for the data? We just don't know. That's a difficulty, isn't it?
Okay. And finally, Fraser, you're a dealer. Why are dealers, we've sort of had some comments already, why are dealers so negative about it? I mean, a lot of them won't have seen it before they've actually made comments. Why are they so negative?
So I'm a big believer that in order to make kind of good business decisions, we need lots of data and we need to fully understand the product. And actually, when you look at Autotrader as a product in the round, Autotrader is a product that has a very dominant position with the consumer. And the way Autotrader have developed that place and developed that trust with the consumer is by putting the consumer first at the heart of everything. And sometimes as dealers, we get kind of given a back seat in the car and the consumer's given the driving seat. But ultimately, we pay the bill. Okay, so there's all these different conflicts going on here, and as dealers, we are picking up the bill, and the bill for Autotrader is obscene. So we pay, on average, I think if you wanted an ultra package or if you took a standard package and did PPC, you'd be paying around £200 per car, okay, to get a prominent position per month on Autotrader. Now that is very, very expensive. And actually, if you look at the cost per sale, it exceeds £200 per car, even if you're working really well. So I believe that I really understand the Autotrader product, because to be honest with you, I have an excellent account manager who spends an awful lot of time with me answering 1,000,001 questions, analysing data. And the one thing Autotrader is fantastic at giving you data and understanding what's going on with kind of the consumer and all of the interactions that you have. Now, all of that said, we get less than half of our inquiries from Autotrader, and we've just downgraded our package to a lower level, but we will use PPC to boost up cars that are having a lower level of performance. So overall, I'm a big believer in don't moan about the product until you understand it. We've been using Deal Builder for quite a long time. There are issues with Deal Builder. The issues are that customer commitment on the vehicle is not strong. Okay, so they will give you indications that it's 3 times more likely to be a deal. Well, I'd rather not have my car reserved for a 200 or 300% increase in the likelihood of them dealing. I only want to reserve a car when I'm certain that customer is committed to the transaction. And at the moment, Deal Builder does not enable you to be certain the customer is committed to a transaction. 2 weeks ago, I took an order from a customer via Deal Builder, and it was an email address only, no phone number. And we got into contact with them within 2 minutes of receiving the reservation, and we contacted them for 3 days. So this car was now off sale on Autotrader for 3 days. There was no commitment. The customer said they'd reserved more than one car and they weren't interested in it, and we cancelled it off. Now, we're told by Autotrader we have a better than average conversion ratio from deal builder bookings to deal builder actually progressing. So they measure the retailers on their percentage conversion from a deal builder booking to a deal builder completion. We are better than average, but I'd rather not have it, is the truth. I'd rather not have it. I don't have the luxury like Virtue and the big car supermarkets have of turning this off. Why do they have the luxury? Well, because they spend too much with Autotrader for Autotrader to mandate it to them, is what I believe. Okay. Now, I do believe Autotrader need to listen an awful lot more to the people that pay their bills. And I have one other point to add, and that is that they are spending far too much of our money that we give to them to advertise on their platform, attracting new car manufacturers, rather than spending money attracting used car buyers to that platform. And looking at the number of buyers on the platform, it has reduced. They need to invest our money on attracting used car buyers to the platform. That is where most of their revenue comes from. So I'm fairly balanced on it. I think there's definitely a place for Autotrader, but we're doing everything possible with Google vehicle ads, motors, and every other place to minimise what we have to give to Autotrader, whilst at the same time being civilised and open-minded and utilising the data that their platform provides.
Okay. I'll make a statement if I mean, for me, the key thing about Deal Builder, I think it's a great product in potentially. I think the problem that, as I perceive it, is it's requiring too much commitment from the consumer, and perhaps too early a part in the sales process. You know, they may be kind of casually interested in a vehicle, as you said, Fraser. You know, a lot of them are dropping out, but that's because they are only casually interested in that vehicle. But Autotrader is pushing them down towards a much higher intent there. And I think the danger perhaps of that is that there's the friction in that process means that a lot of consumers who perhaps don't want to commit, not the ones that want to put £99 on 3 cars and couldn't care, though a lot of them are dropping out of that before they ever sort of put the inquiry through to the dealer, and they're being left in Autotrader land until they actually are then committed to a car or feel committed to the car. And I think there's that gap between I'm just browsing to I want to buy that they need to fill. Anybody got any comment on that? Am I right in thinking that, Neil?
Yeah, I think we've all alluded to the fact that it's probably a little bit potentially too early in the journey, but I think the bigger, if we widen this out beyond Deal Builder, for me, and this goes back to probably 2017 Imperial days, 2018, the platforms become more and more vanilla. So the ability for a dealer to personalize their experience in terms of showing that customer all the good things about that dealer on the platform. I go back to the days when attention grabber was reduced to 27 characters. The listing description was reduced to 2 lines, just one image on the listing. You're only allowed a little logo, very little personalization. And I think over the time that we've now seen things like the AI content writer introduced now, right? Back in my day, your day, Ian, everybody else that's the dealer, you know, we used to invest a lot of time and money in writing good content for the adverts, you know, making sure our images were great, getting our vehicle descriptions right, everything that now you can do at a touch of a button. So a dealer who isn't that, I suppose, focused on that because they may be too busy in other areas, we're not able, dealers aren't able to really gain any advantage on Autotrader now because of that vanilla level, other than paying up for enhanced packages. You know, the only way you get prominence is enhanced package or pricing ridiculously low to get top of the funnel. So I think the wider piece is, as we bring things like Deal Builder in, we're now even, you know, we're making that vanilla now, you know, and I get it from a consumer perspective, right? And the argument does persist that basically that aggregator exists to show the customer everything in one place, give them a very simple way to compare, etc., etc. But what it does do is depersonalize the dealer to a point now, the deprioritization of those action contact points that will take you through to a dealer's website. The shutting down of deep linking now. You know, it's even to a point where I had a discussion with a dealer the other day where the discussion they'd had with the Autotrader was around the point of, wouldn't it be great if you didn't need a website? This and this is what concerns me now, that we're getting to a point where Autotrader are that dominant, which and they deliver, but at a cost. But how far does this go now, where dealers are merely treated as a stock supply?
Fraser.
I think there's another thing here. We are, as dealers, we spend huge amounts sourcing vehicles, okay? We get good numbers of inquiries. We turn our stock quite fast. We'll turn all of our stock every month. That's kind of where we're at. We have about 75 cars normally around us, and we look to turn those every single month. Now, if somebody comes along into my showroom and wants to buy a car, cash no bits, I almost want to turn them around. If I genuinely could, I would send them away. I do not want to sell cars cash no bits. And as Autotrader moves down this direction of trying to control the transaction overall, what they're doing is shutting down my opportunity to do what I need to do. If I get somebody on finance and I sell them a warranty, then I can double my profit per unit, okay? I don't get the opportunity to do that with Autotrader because of Deal Builder, and unless the inquiry comes through and we can handle it and talk the customer through all of the benefits to them of these different options, and the benefits of taking dealer finance with their VT rights and their halves and their thirds and the tripartite agreements, and then how wonderful the warranty is that we provide as an option for the customer. I'm not interested in selling metal anymore. For me, I'm selling a package and a customer experience to provide an amazing experience for customers. And that's exactly what we do. And we need that personal touch. Customers don't want to only deal with AI. There's a percentage, I don't know whether it's between 7 or 15%, that don't want to interact with humans. But that leaves the vast majority that really want a personal experience. And by doing what Autotrader are doing, I think we're taking that away. So, I repeat, we're desperately trying to reduce our reliance on Autotrader, but I've no interest in falling out.
Okay, interesting. I just want to roll back on something. We've used the phrase a few times, and I just want to make sure that we actually understand the phrase. Neil mentioned it, and I think Ian mentioned it as well, the concept of deep links. Ian, tell me about deep links.
Well, I'll see. So deep link is where the consumer on average searches between 11 and 14 hours doing their consumer research. So they'll go to a platform like some Motors, like some Autotrader. They then come and got to the deepest part of the website. They found the car that they're interested in. They've found the research on Autotrader, and now they just want to go and see about that dealer. They want to go and see what that vehicle's like on the actual dealer's website. They click on there. And a really bad example is it takes you to the homepage, which makes a consumer has to think again. They've got to try and find a car. Now, if you're a big dealer group, trying to find that car has been quite hard. It's all right if you've got 8 or 9 cars, you might find it. But for a consumer experience, and what best practice is that you want them to land at that vehicle, and therefore then they can begin to interact and engage, and then make that contact through that dealer. And what we know, and let's be absolutely honest, the best traffic you can get is Autotrader deep link traffic. Now, whatever we say, it is the best traffic by far, because when they come on there is a likelihood that consumer is going to make a telephone call or put an email in, and that's the reason why. And I was saying to Simon earlier before I come on, I'm quite fortunate. I'm in a WhatsApp group with some of the leading AM100 marketeers on there, and they've been talking about Deal Builder for the last 18 months. They've been having this conversation, and they do not want it. There's not one dealer in that wants it, and all of them, not because it's a bad product. There are 2 main reasons they don't want it. Number one is because it's the number one CTA they're trying to push, which is wrong, because we all want telephone calls, we all want the message, we all want the emails. But the big thing is because they're going to switch off deep links. And we know the deep links that come across, because when you sit down and you start looking at your CPL and your attribution, and you take that into account of what is generated from your own site, then you can see that full picture. And listen, we know Autotrader can be expensive, but if you trade it well, position your stock on there, there is merchandise right, price right. Don't put on your plus 80 retail rating, because you don't need them on there, because you'll channel that through your own website and through other third-party channels. You can get a return out of Autotrader. You can get a good cost per lead out of Autotrader. But they've got real risk here, because if they bring this in, all of a sudden it goes the wrong way.
That's interesting. I'm going to put that to the question. I mean, obviously, we talked about that from the marketing and the marketeer's perspective. Josh, I mean, do you perceive a value in the deep links and would be concerned about the loss of deep links from Autotrader?
For sure, yeah. I mean, it's not so much that you kind of hope for a customer from anywhere other than Autotrader. I mean, we've tried various different platforms, and to be honest with you, Autotrader just delivers the best quality of leads, especially on the kind of values of cars that we sell. We've tried the likes of your eBay Motors. We're actually on with Car Gurus at the moment, which is proving to be actually okay, but just nothing compares to what Autotrader does. And having those deep links, kind of bringing customers to our website, we have it quite often where a customer will come via Autotrader and look at a Ferrari, for example, and then compare it to a couple of cars on our website. So it then enables us to have that personal touch, as the other guys have mentioned, and really get to know the customer before we get to a point of having a deposit, which is taking us right the way back to the start of this, which is obviously the £99 non-deposit, as they call it. So it's important. It can't be taken lightly, because it completely changes the playing field for dealers. And I think a big thing to mention in this is that we're giving away all the power to Autotrader. This data is being harvested, and eventually there is a cost to that for not just Autotrader, but for us, because where does that stop? Do they then control the finance? Do they control everything that comes with making that deposit over the next 12, 24, 48 months? We just don't know. So it's a critical time.
Fraser?
Just on the flip side, Motors at the moment, with their enterprise package, have just introduced deep links. So you can, they've really progressed their package and their offering across Motors, Kazoo, Yahoo. There's a whole range of things all within the one platform. And if you go for their enterprise package, you now get deep links. And we're finding that's really good for us, because Motors without deep links is not very good for finance penetration. Motors with deep links into a website that is really finance orientated is extremely powerful for us, and we're getting really good conversion rates from that. And also from Google Vehicle Ads, because we've now got finance offers on Google Vehicle Ads as well. So we're now able to generate not only sales of vehicles, but also high levels of that finance pen from Google Vehicle Ads. So there are other ways to to deliver all of this.
So I'm just supporting that. Fraser, you've just answered the question I wanted to answer there. You're absolutely right. Deep links from Motors is some of the best deep links you can get. So I know we talked about leads, that wasn't so good, but the deep links, what we see, are converting really high, particularly in finance. And then you mentioned GVA, Google Vehicle Ads. If you do GVA wrong, it can be very, very expensive. You do GVA right with retargeting based on what the consumer's done to VDP, oh my word, it can be one of the best returns that you'll get. Integrate the finance, and you are talking literally sub £3-4 for good quality leads, and it's targeted. But it's all about the retargeting on GVA. You get that right, you'll smash it.
Which leads me perfectly into kind of the next step. But before I move on to the next bit, just to summarise, it sounds like that. Talking about Autotrader today, they've got all the tools, they've got all the facilities that a dealer needs, but perhaps they just kind of maybe not using them in a way that is beneficial overall. They're in trying to control the sales lead end to end, they're not giving the dealer what they need to be able to take control of that lead and convert it into a sale. Would that be right, Gary?
I've been listening, Simon, neutrally, and the things that jump out for me is that, if I was Autotrader and we know that we've got the strongest deep links from any of our competitors, then you would challenge yourself, well, how do we make that even better? How do we make that better? And I'm sure that's the thinking within Autotrader. But I think where they may have crossed the line is Deal Builder is good in principle, but to summarise, where I think it's gone wrong is in its execution, because it's taken away that control, as we say, from the qualification, from the other conversations with the customer, from controlling the finance, from controlling stock. And Autotrader don't sell cars, dealers sell cars. And I think if they went back, and I get it, they could have a look at that and maybe, for example, don't shoehorn one finance provider in. If the dealers were able to plug their own finance providers in and you align that deal builder journey with how the dealers operate, then maybe you would get more buy-in from the dealers because you're delivering something in a dealer perspective. We always say when we build our tech solutions that 80% of the user journey is probably will get right. 20% will leave as a customization because we respect that the owner operators know their businesses better than we do, and it's far easier to change the tech than rather than a business owner to change his operational process.
Perfect. So I think I think the thing about now is that lots of dealers are talking about moving away from Autotrader, leaving them entirely, downgrading their package. I heard Fraser mention that he downgraded his package, and I think lots of dealers are in that. And I think it's not a new theme. I've heard that recurrently for several years now, that dealers are looking to kind of reduce their spend with Autotrader for various reasons. And the question you ask is quite often is, why don't more dealers have done that or are doing that? I'll answer that question, I guess. I think a lot of them are, scared a little bit that if they reduce their spend on Autotrader, they'll lose their leads. I just want to ask, I'll come back to you, Ian. I want to ask Jim a question. You did this a decade ago. What made you at that time want to leave Autotrader? And more importantly, you're still here today, so it didn't kill all your leads. How did you achieve that?
Yeah, so if we turn the clock back 10 years, Simon, I made that decision based on fact that I gathered over a 6-month period behind the scenes. After a bit of a fallout with Autotrader, when it was to do with a website, but by it was a bit of an argument with Autotrader. In 6 months, I decided that let's look to see, where all our leads are coming from, and that was basically it. So we're across different platforms, and although Autotrader admittedly are the kings and queens of data, there's absolutely no doubts about that at all. I'm sure there's nobody in this call who disagrees with that. One of the pieces of data they won't share with you is what other websites the customer's been to before and after the visit to Autotrader. And that is key because customers will shop elsewhere. They won't just make a decision based on Autotrader alone. I looked up motors today just to see how many cars have actually got advertised. 319,000 cars advertised, opposed to Autotrader at 452,000. Motors have massively changed. If you look back 10 years ago, Autotrader was 400-something thousand, about 450. Motors was likely sitting about 100 and something. So it's a massive change. And that's what I based my decision on leaving was, we asked customers exactly where they found the vehicle. And if you word it correctly and listen to the answer correctly, which is prime, because I still get, having been away from the Autotrader for 10 years, I still get customers coming in and saying they've seen it in Autotrader and they would put money on it, they've seen it in Autotrader. Because the reality is, the way you ask the question is definitely key to that answer, isn't it? Because it's got no relevance to the customer, but it's got a lot of relevance to you because you're obviously paying for that advert. And you will find that if you're advertising vehicles elsewhere, let it be on social media, let it be in the car gurus, let it be in motors, wherever it is, the customer will see it in more than one place, Simon. And that's one of the reasons we moved away from it. And we haven't looked back. Sometimes when it goes quiet, you think, oh, jings, should we be on Autotrader? And then you think, well, no, you look at the bill that you could actually have and you think, well, no, I'm glad I'm not quiet and still on Autotrader, which is the key thing as well, isn't it? Because we do always do waves of quietness. So it's just, it's almost like a drug, I've heard it being described as a drug, and it is almost like a drug, isn't it? Once you're on it, you get hooked. And all of these dealers, and I've got a lot of respect for these dealers, standing up and saying, look, enough is enough. Because the elephant in the room, guys, is the fact that, it's not just about deal builder, is it? It's about, obviously, the cost. It's about, the relationship with Zuto. It's about, it's a lot more things than just deal builder. Deal builder is the straw that's broken, the camel's back this time round. and they may well, Autotrader may well pay the price this time round, but they will pull the proverbial rabbit out the hat in day 29 of the cancellations and say, here you go, here's free advertising for the next couple of months on the quietest 2 months of the year, and half of the dealers will fall for it, and that is the problem. You've got to stick to your guns once you've made a decision, go cold turkey completely and move on.
Jim, I think you've hit a nail on the head there in terms of it's in order to move away, you have to have data. And if you have something like, we have a CRM system that we work with called MotorDat, and MotorDat tells me on last source attribution exactly where every single lead has come through, because everything that comes onto my website is tracked. From my website, it then passes the inquiry through to our lead management system. The lead management system then tracks it all the way through to the daily operating control, and I can track gross profit based on last source attribution. So I can see where every single inquiry came from, or where the last point at which it came from was. So it's very similar to what you said about asking the salespeople where the leads came from, but measured using data. And as a result of that, we make very good decisions about where our leads are coming from and our cost per sale and cost per lead. When you've got that very accurate data, you can then make a decision as to where you want to spend the money and walk away from Autotrader with confidence. Now, I don't want to walk away from Autotrader. I think what they do provides us with great data and lots of information over and above what the platforms provide for us. But what I would say to Autotrader is, guys, there are 3 parties in your setup. There's Autotrader, there's the consumer, and there's the dealer. It's gone too far. It's no longer supporting the dealers as much as it needs to. They just need to do a bit of a tweak back to the dealer, give either the cost or the decision making about the development of the product needs to go back into the people who's paying the bills, and that's the dealers. And when you look at people like Motors, who are now 3/4 the size of Autotrader, there are more and more options for dealers, and I think we should just be aware of that. But I did want to follow up on what Jim was saying and say, take it to the next level and use digital data to measure where your leads are coming from and know exactly how much gross profit is being generated by each digital inquiry source.
Jim.
Simon, I think one of the caveats we've got to have as well when we're speaking about obviously all dealers, dealers are all at different stages. I've been 22 years with my dealership, or almost 22 years. And with 23 years, if you've done the job right, you've got repeat and referral customers coming out your ears. Whereas if you're only a year in, 2 years in, you will need Autotrader much more than I need Autotrader. Yeah, and that is a difficulty. So, although I'm saying all dealers should be doing this, it's not all dealers, but the dealers who are shouting loud enough should be the ones that have actually done their job right in the first place. They should actually have those customers' details. They should be in constant contact, let that be through a CRM, email blast. They should be farming their own data and not allowing Autotrader to do it for them. If they haven't been doing that, Simon, they've only got themselves to blame to be in this situation. So,
indeed, Neil.
Just, I suppose, to follow on from that point, and just looking back again to the last days of Imperial, I mean, I was spending 50% of my 330 grand marketing budget on Autotrader. That was generating me 6,000 direct leads, 1,500 referral leads through the website. I was spending 70 grand on Google Ads, generating a similar amount of leads, but the Autotrader leads converted 2.5 times better than Google Ads, right? So you might have said, why wasn't I spending more on Autotrader at the time? At the time, we were maxed out on Autotrader. We were on the top package. We were using PPC. I couldn't spend any more, so I needed other channels. If we look at where we are today, you've got dealers, I've got dealers, I'm sure Ian's got dealers spending similar or less, spending maybe £10, £11 a lead on Car Gurus versus 50, 60 quid a lead on Autotrader. What tends to happen though, and we were guilty of this at Imperial, that it's almost a self-fulfilling prophecy, because dealers start to see the value of an Autotrader lead, so that gets prioritised over the Car Gurus lead. Okay, so then an hour and a half later, when someone contacts the Car Gurus lead rather than 15 minutes for the Autotrader lead, suddenly that lead's cold and they're saying Car Gurus is absolute crap. Actually, if you start to refocus and say, well, okay, let's look at the value of those leads, because again, Josh, I'm seeing good results through Car Gurus at the moment. I'm also, Ian, seeing good results through Motors, right? They're getting their act together. They're doing some good stuff. But if the dealer doesn't treat those leads with a similar amount of importance it does with Autotrader, it doesn't matter how good those platforms are becoming, because sales teams with the best will in the world will migrate to where they see the quickest win. And if they see that to be Autotrader, they will discard Car Gurus leads and they will discard Motors leads. So when we're talking about what other channels are there to invest in and look at, dealers have got to start giving those other channels the same level of attention, because the cost savings are dramatic. GVA, Ian, you're right, £3 to £4. I've got dealers at £7-8. You know, they're generating good quality leads, but they have to give them the focus and the attention that they give every other channel, including the dominant aggregator.
This is quite interesting. I think one of the things that I always get from my conversation with you, Neil, and also from Ian, of the people who look at the marketing side, which I don't often get from dealers, is you talk a lot about knowing how much a lead from each channel costs you, know how much a sale from each channel costs you, and I think, as Fraser mentioned, know how much profit you get from each channel compared to what you spend. I think a lot of dealers, if you ask them that question, can't answer it as quickly as you have. And if you go into, you know, for me, as a sort of somebody who doesn't get involved in marketing too much in that way, if you can't answer those questions, you can't really make an informed decision about what's good or bad. You're almost shotgunning your money, hoping that you're getting the right leads and getting the right sales from that. Would you agree with that comment?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just go back very quickly. I mean, I spoke to an ex-Autotrader colleague recently, and they said dealers will always complain but never act. Obviously, Jim did act, but this time it feels different. I'll tell you why it feels different at the moment. For the first time in 3 or 4 years, Autotrader are going into December without an offer on the table. There's no level up. There's no stock boost. You've then got the alternatives with Motors going heavily into social, giving them free of charge. Car Gurus out this morning with you can have your listings free of charge to the end of the year. You've got CarWow offering a C to D channel that if you buy vehicles from them to the level, you can have free listings. And we spoke about GVA already. So I think for the first time in many years now, there's a real opportunities for dealers to, and I'm not going to say come off because I'd never condone that, but I think there's a real opportunity going into December where we know you usually have to batten down the hatches, that you can actually reduce those stock levels right the way down. Go on these other channels, give yourself the trial of these other channels, but give yourself a real opportunity to actually show, I can get a cost reduction in my December. And I think that's going to be the difference. And I think the time they've chosen to come out with Deal Builder and make it and sort of push it into the independents is a terrible time for them, because there's nothing on the table from them. So I think it's going to be an interesting time coming over the next few weeks, if they do anything. Sorry, Neil.
No, just quickly, and I know Gary put his hand up as well. Yeah, I look, more than anything, the whole Deal Builder piece on the back of the Part H1 results has just been terrible timing. It's been a PR disaster. You know, that product, when you start to delve into it now and seeing some of the comments coming out, actually there is ability to be flexible with that product, but that was not part of the original brief to the PR agency by the looks of it. You know, I think this is far more a PR failure than an actual product failure. Because they haven't got the information out there. They haven't told people exactly what the options are or what the potential is. So, look, hopefully they'll learn from that. But you're right, Ian, as well. You know, the fact of the matter is there are other channels now are doing a lot more to deliver what the dealer needs, right? You know, everything we've spoken about today is let's listen to the dealer. And I think that's where, back again, the amount of times I say this in webinars, when I was at Imperial, and clearly when you were where you were in, we used to get consulted quite heavily on some of this stuff back in the day. We'd get invited up to Manchester. I remember when Price Indicator hit, we were up there giving our feedback, and some of the feedback they did take on board. And I don't know, I gave significant feedback when we got out of Deal Builder at the other 18 months ago, but it seemed to land on deaf ears, let's put it that way. I think they've got their path, and it's very difficult for you to move them off that now. And I would just reiterate, I would never tell a dealer to come off Autotrader. Dealers I'm dealing with most of the time, certainly the smaller independents, are probably spending 80 to 90% of their marketing budget on Autotrader now. What I'm telling them to do is, right, let's try and find a way to get down to 70 to 60, release some of that money, and get some of that money into other channels, and then really work those channels. Just don't expect them to deliver. Work them. Do all the stuff that Ian talks about. Check your cost per lead, understand your cost per acquisition, understand the journey that customer's on through to the website and the deep link if that product provides it, And sometimes it's difficult because dealers, especially owner drivers, they don't have the time, which is why you need people like me and Ian, obviously.
Clearly.
But anyway, so look, that's me. I've spoken enough. Over to everybody else now.
Okay, I've got a question. Clearly, I think just going back to something Jim picked up to something Jim said, Autotrader in this concept can almost be seen as like a drug dealer. And what they offer is a drug that dealers want to have. And the question is should dealers be reducing their level of drug taking in that regards? And and do they perceive that? I'm going to ask Josh a question. Did you feel that's kind of a good analogy of looking at Autotrader as being like a drug?
It is. I mean, for the scale of my business and how long I've been in the game, which is obviously a far lot less than you guys, the reliance on Autotrader at this stage of the business is key. The kind of cars that we sell, which are high value cars, we are looking all the time for various different ways to kind of market those cars, but from our feedback, our data that we look at, they do come via Autotrader. Granted, we have a lot of referrals, a lot of repeat business, but yeah, it is that drug situation where not only do they deliver a high majority of our leads, that it's very easy to then put onto my sales staff here, and they can deal with that very, very quickly and efficiently. So yeah, it's probably the right way of putting it.
Are you thinking about perhaps using other channels more through December, January, which are your quieter periods? You can do some experimentation.
Yeah, we will do. Again, it's been such a volatile market as of recently that the times where we've kind of bucked trends, and there could be various different reasons for that. But whenever it seems to be quiet in the industry, we're busy. When everyone else is busy, we're quiet. So we're still in the stage of kind of trying to understand a lot more why that happens. So for me to go and turn Autotrader off would be hopefully not catastrophic, but it would be a big impact on the business. So I wouldn't be turning it off. Would I be downscaling it? Yes, I would. Car Gurus, obviously, like I mentioned earlier, and various other ways of kind of getting those leads in would be something that we are actually looking at doing here, because I don't want to be a dealer in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years that's solely dependent on Autotrader. I think it's a dangerous game, because you're giving them the keys to the safe, and eventually, like we've mentioned earlier, no after sales products, no finance leads, because they're going to own that data and they're going to get paid for that data in order to harvest the deals that are coming to you. So yeah, it's the right way, definitely, for sure, as you say.
So what you're kind of saying there is, the danger is the drug will eventually kill you if you're not careful.
Yeah, it's very hard to come off of it. It's not one of the light drugs. It's probably one of the more hardcore ones. And when it gives you that high, when a car goes out the door and there's a happy customer, you think that that's the be all and end all. And that's just the way it is at the moment for us in terms of the leads that we get. But as I say, I want us to be less reliant on it, but that's going to be a time process and a learning process and getting much more data. I don't think we can make decisions like that off of a whim in a quiet month. I think we need to have much more data behind us and history to then go, right, okay, we can slowly move away from the dependence on Autotrader, and this is why. Okay,
I've got 2 more points before I wrap up. The first one is, we talked about a lot of the sales process and the sales way and the lead generation that Autotrader does. But the other thing that I find that dealers say that they both like and dislike with Autotrader is their sales metric data. They've got their price guides, their days to sell guide, the number of leads you expect at a certain price. I guess the questions are: does Autotrader have a monopoly on that data? Can you get it from somewhere else if you were to move away from Autotrader? And what do we think about the quality of that data in the real world? Anyone want to comment on that?
So was that me? For me, I think their data their data is second to none. I mean, you've got to remember that originally when they first built iControl, and that was all based on the V Autos product over in the States. And we love the data. There are other sources which we integrate, but be honest with you, the Autotrader data is brilliant. And let's be absolutely fair. You go back a few years ago when they first thought about charging dealers to give them that data, when they opened up all their feeds, you can supply all their feeds. It's now you've got all that data comes available, and I think it is the best data we can use.
Neil.
Yeah, just to add to that, look, if the majority of dealers' marketing spend is going on that one platform, then why would you not use that data? You're advertising on that platform, so use the data that's relevant to that platform. Now, if you're a dealer that, like Jim can go anywhere and get data, that's fine, because he's not advertising on that platform. And there are great data sets out there. But if you're advertising and 80% of your spend or 70% of your spend is on Autotrader, use that data. It is free, in inverted commas, right? You're not paying extra for the data, it comes bundled in. And the level of that data now is phenomenal. So if you want to do it right, use their data, use that data day in, day out. And going back to Ian's original point earlier on, if you're strategic in the way you manage your stock that's being advertised on there, you use their data to the fullest degree you can. You run automated pricing to a point with the option to opt out, opt in on using various third-party tools. You will benefit, you will be strategic, and you will get to a point where it's more cost effective. That doesn't mean you shouldn't be looking elsewhere for a few little add-ons in other channels. Jim,
obviously you don't have access to Autotrader data apart from as a consumer. Do you use data from elsewhere, or is everything coming from the top of your head, or your own data?
That's why I put no here. No, I mean, data is a must, isn't it? Without data, you've got absolutely nothing at all. We use data from different sources. However, our go-to is Autotrader. Our go-to is Autotrader. We can't obviously access the data that obviously dealers get, because unlike what Neil said, it's not free, it's inclusive with their packages. But we don't have that access. But it's very, very easy with a quick scroll, 5-minute scroll of Autotrader to get something local, because we market to our local business. Again, likewise, that's likely where a lot of dealers are different. If you pick national, you most likely need to be on Autotrader. Yeah. Again, going back to something that Josh said, and sorry to jump about a wee bit, Simon, here. Back to something Josh said about obviously being an Autotrader and his type of cars. I had a quick look at his website and fantastic cars also on there. But if I was spending that kind of money on a car, I wouldn't be looking on Autotrader for that type of car. I'd be searching the web for a reliable great reputation dealership to buy a car from, because the reality is, let it be £105,000 for the Ferrari, or £130,000. The reality is, £55,000 goes a long way when you know that the dealer's going to be a reputable dealer. So I think Josh, I do think Josh, in reality, you've actually got one of the easiest companies to come away from Autotrader, to be quite honest with you. Whereas for ourselves, where we're obviously bread and butter cars, maybe slightly less so. Do you want to say that?
Yeah, it's funny because the majority of our cars, we were laughing in the office earlier actually, that I think it's kind of 60% of our cars go to Scotland. So they all go.
That's where the money is. Yeah.
Yeah, it's where all the money is. Yeah. We get very, very little people that actually want to view the cars. We get very little test drives. Majority of our stuff is kind of, you can see what it is. It's either within warranty, main dealer warranty, or we have an independent kind of high-level inspection done on the car, so the customer knows what they're buying. So my kind of sales process, especially in the higher end stuff, is to get it to a point that customer has got so much faith in that car, if they are buying from Scotland, that it's not a question that they do need to go and kind of look at the car in person. So I understand what you're saying in terms of moving away from Autotrader is probably going to be an easier thing for us, but we're just used to kind of having the from day one, the inquiries that we've had that have just solely always been from that kind of level. And a big point for me to mention as well is that even in the short period of time that V12 has been in existence, even the demographic of those buyers has changed. The buyers of the Lamborghini Uruses and the Ferraris are much younger. They're much more educated in what they're buying, and the kind of way they are buying is via Autotrader. It's not that they are doing the Google for that car. So I don't know whether it's going to be different, and data might say otherwise on the lower end kind of cars, but we're definitely seeing a lot younger people getting into these high value cars and wanting finance, and it being much more of a process of, rather than actually being 100% on the car, this is my budget per month, I like the Lamborghini Urus, can I get accepted? And it's getting to that stage before you then get into it. So yeah, it's trying to find the best kind of way of molding that into getting a decent lead and getting that sales on the board.
I think we talked about data earlier and where we can get data from that's like Autotrader data. If anybody's not seen Brago, something that I saw at AM Live, incredibly powerful, using AI to scrape data. So the data and the ability to understand what's going on in the market and understand individual cars and classifications of cars and groups of cars. Actually, I thought Brago's data was more powerful than Autotrader's.
Yeah, Brago is very good. The banks use it actually for their balloons, and a very interesting thing that we kind of use as well in assistance with banks when we help with balloons and things like that is that you can see all the historic adverts of that car. So if that car was advertised 5 years ago, you can see exactly where it was sold, the mileage, the description, everything. So again, it's all about data. Everyone keeps mentioning it, and as time evolves and AI comes in, I think Autotrader's kind of slipping away with, okay, they are the kings right now, but there is people catching them and catching them fast.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Okay, our time, I think, is coming to a close now. So I'm just going to roll around everybody, if you wouldn't mind. If you were talking to either a fellow dealer or for the consultants in the room to a dealer, and they were saying, what should I do today? What would be the one bit of advice you gave to them? So, Fraser, let's start with you.
So the first thing I do is understand exactly how much your cost per lead is for each inquiry source digitally. Make sure you have a system like MotorDAP that tells you exactly where your leads are coming from and how much they're costing you. And finally, use Brago to understand what's going on out there in terms of the market. If you do that and then you choose to spend your money in areas that you're getting a good return on investment, like motors, Google vehicle ads, and motors with the deep links, then you can diversify. I'm not recommending you leave Autotrader, but you can certainly take more than half of your spend away from Autotrader.
Neil?
Just echo what Fraser said. Really, really simply, understand your cost per lead, understand your cost per acquisition. Then you can work out your return on investment across those channels. You can be smart about where you put your budget. I mean, you'll remember a conference recently. I asked how many dealers could tell me how many vehicles they sold the month before. Everybody put their hand up. I said, now keep your hand up if you know what your cost per lead was. Everybody put their hand down. I mean, that's basic. Get that done. Use this month and December to really nail that down so you can start to hit the ground running in January.
Perfect. Jim?
I think instead of worrying about what you can't control, which is Autotrader, I think you've got to look at what you can control as a dealer, and that's marketing spend, where you spend your money, where you advertise your stock. Your Google business profile, something as simple as that. Go and look at it. Is it relevant? Go and get it sorted out. SEO on your website, social media. It's now not called social media. It's called attention media. It's interest media. It's there. Everybody is at it. Short form video. It's a must. Social media marketing. And your own data, if you've been in the go for a little while, go and look at your own data, and go and farm your own customers. That's what it's all about. And also, one of the things that we've found over the last, 3 or 4 years, and it's ideal for our size of dealership, not everybody's size of dealership, is a local community. We are very, very much into the local business, and we support our local community fantastically well. And building your reputation and trusting the local offline side of things, because everything's not online, even though everybody wants to think it is online. People are people, and the amount of business we have got, especially for our workshop, which is another ball game altogether, but for our workshop especially, and for selling cars and hiring vehicles, has been fantastic in the local community because they see us as a dealer giving back.
Josh?
I would obviously echo what everyone else has said, but I would say, just diversifying where you're kind of advertising and learning, which is the best platforms for you and your stock profile. I would think is probably a thing that majority of dealers will kind of throw everything out everywhere and not really know where their leads are coming from, just as long as they're getting leads. So I think diversifying and really understanding what works for your profile of stock is a key thing to nail down and know.
Perfect. Gary?
I think the question I'd be asking myself is, how dependent am I on a single platform, and is that healthy for my business? If you really challenge yourself with that, you'll probably see that just listening to all the conversations today and different points of view, is that the strongest dealers diversify their digital ecosystem. Jim's already proved that. Fraser's doing that. And that includes, owning the Sell My Car and Part Exchange, strengthening your website conversion, controlling the appraisal process, building direct buyer audiences, using multiple classification sources, and improving retention and repeat business. The more of that journey the dealer controls, the less dependent they are on any single provider.
And Ian, you get the final word.
Yeah, I think for me it's about having that efficient marketing mix and the ROI across all those channels, making sure you do have multiple channels and you get an ROI from each of them, and having tactical pricing strategies probably by each marketplace. Awesome.
Well, our time comes to a close. Thank you to everybody, the panel, joining me today. I thought I knew about this subject quite well, and I've learnt a lot, so I'm sure a lot of people would as well. It's been really interesting. Some great advice there, I think, from everybody there. Things that dealers can start to at least think about today. And it's a great deal of time from a dealer to actually start experimenting at the quietest time of the year, which is good. Finally, to everybody, thank you for listening to the Dealer Tech Talk. Don't forget to subscribe on Spotify or YouTube or any platform that you listen to us on. As part of what we do at Dealer Tech Talk, we provide a number of downloadable guides that align with our episodes. There is a guide going to be written for this episode, and you can download that from www.dealertechtalk.uk/guides. Dealer Tech Talk today is sponsored by DMS Navigator and Motor Companion. I'm Simon Verona. Thank you to everybody here, but join me next time as we tackle more ways to simplify dealership success with technology.